Sangasya muktasya
Kada sangasya muktasya
jnanavastita chetasaha
jnanavastita chetasaha
yajnaya icharata karma
yajnaya sadata karma
samagram pravidiyate gata sangasya muktasya jnanavastita chetasaha yajnaya icharata karma samagram pravidiyate.
Gada sangasya,
Gata sangasya
unattached to the modes of material nature. Muktasya, of the liberated. Jnana avastita, situated in transcendence. Chetasaha, of such wisdom. Yajnaya, for the sake of Yajna, Krishna. Acharataha, so acting. Karma, work. Samagram, in total. Paraviliyate, merges entirely. Translation. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from all dualities and thus is free from the contaminations of the material modes. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in relationship with Krishna. And thus, his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna, who is the primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices because sacrifice involves satisfying the Supreme Person, Krishna. The resultant reactions of such work entirely merge into transcendence, and one does not suffer material effects. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Chalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, instructing him about how one should work in this world. Everyone has to do some kind of work. Krishna says, even if you want to maintain your body, you have to work. The body requires nourishment, and therefore, you have to obtain food. You have to cook that food. After you cook the food, you have to clean the vessels. It's work, right? But if you don't do that, you can't maintain your body. Nowadays, people try to bypass those things as much as they can. They say, no, we'll eat in the restaurant. Some people, mostly, they just eat in restaurants. So they don't have to clean the pots. They don't have to cut the vegetables or whatever else, other unmentionable things that they might want to eat. But then they have to go out and work hard to get money to be able to afford eating in the restaurant. So the point is, we have to do some work, some karma has to be there. The point here being made by Krishna is that when it's done, for the Lord as a sacrifice. Right? One sacrifices one's activities for the pleasure of the Lord. And that doesn't necessarily mean that one has to do anything too complicated. Simply one has to offer whatever one eats to Krishna. Right? Srila Prabhupada has given us a process by which we can offer our food to Krishna. Is that better? We can offer our food to Krishna, and we follow certain procedures, and it becomes a sacrifice, right? Now, we shouldn't take that very flippantly, right? There was one devotee on traveling Sankirtan. He went into the grocery store and came out and he said, "You can buy anything in there. I offered everything to Krishna." So that kind of casual mood should not be there. It's a serious thing, offering our food to Krishna. We should prepare foodstuffs for the pleasure of Krishna, things that Krishna likes to eat, and in that way offer it to Krishna with the procedure that Srila Prabhupada has given us, reciting various prayers and other procedures that are there. Of course, the procedures for offering food to the deity is even more complete or complex than just offering in your home. But basically, it's the same thing. Saying prayers, requesting the Lord to accept these foodstuffs. And from us, what would he accept? Krishna accepts bhakti. It's not what you offer, it's how you offer it. Right? Srila Prabhupada used to say that Krishna doesn't want your puris. He doesn't need your puris. Radharani is cooking for him. And she never makes any preparation the same twice. And it's always sweet as nectar. Right? So when he has that kind of cooking going on, what is he in need for your puris? But he wants bhakti. Bhakti. He's attracted by bhakti. Each devotee has an individual relationship with Krishna. And Krishna is known as Rasaraj. He enjoys, he's the king of the rasas. He wants to enjoy all the rasas. And each one of us has this unique relationship with Krishna. Just like everyone's fingerprints are different. You know, the police, they fingerprint you've committed a crime because they can find you again because your fingerprints are unique compared to anyone else's. In the same way, the relationship that we have with Krishna is very unique. And Krishna he's Anandamaya Brihasat. He seeks pleasure. And he wants to experience that unique relationship that we all have with him. But right now, we're ignoring him. We're busy in so many other things. So bhakti, sadhana bhakti means to turn our attention towards Krishna and turn away from the life of sense gratification. Sense gratification causes us to forget Krishna. And bhakti, the process of sadhana bhakti, helps us to remember Krishna. The form of the opposite sex evokes lust within the heart. And the form of Krishna, Radha and Krishna, evoke real love within the heart. So, bhakti is required. And bhakti can be obtained from one who has bhakti. He can give bhakti. Of course, in this age that we live in, the primary practice is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended, and Shastra has also explained, that in this age of Kali, the way to become self-realized is by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada has given us this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and the result that we will get depends upon how we try to chant. And therefore, there's 10 offenses that we can avoid in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And as we'll get the result in as much as we are offenseless in our chanting. So the result of offensive chanting is that one would merge into the Brahman. And the result of nama bas, that means a shadow of pure chanting, is that we would, offensive chanting will get to heavenly planets. Nama bas will bring us to Brahman realization. And only with pure chanting can we enter into the spiritual world. So we really don't want to go to the heavenly planets. One devotee I was talking to and said, yeah, back to Godhead, I'm just trying to get to the heavenly planets. But that's not really going to help us out. Krishna clearly says from the planet of Brahma, all the way down, all are places of birth and death. They're suffering there. And if you go to the heavenly planets, let's say that, 6 months here is 1 day there. So a lifetime there is maybe 250,000 years in the heavenly planets. And then what? You come back here. When your pious credits are finished, you come back here. Now, we are in the Kali Yuga up to about 5,000 something years. And it's going to go on for another 400,000 years. So going up to the heavenly planets and coming back down here when Kali Yuga is advanced by another 200,000 years, would you think that's a very good proposal? We can see, I'm 70 years old, maybe you're a little bit younger, but from the time I was young till now, I can see how Kali Yuga has progressed. And just like when I first came to Bombay, they had these places called permit rooms. And a permit room was actually a bar, but you had to have a permit to operate one. So they used to call it permit rooms in Bombay when I came in 77. And there were very few, not many. But now, as Kali Yuga has progressed, there's what they call the family restaurant and bar. And they're everywhere, almost on every corner, right? The family restaurant and bar. So, this shows that Kali Yuga is progressing. And so many things in Kali Yuga, they're not truthful, right? For no reason, they just tell lies, And they give the example that we can understand maybe a woman would fudge on her age, few years this way, that way. Sometimes ladies do that. But nowadays, I don't know about in America, but in India, even men, they never tell the truth about their age by 5 years or so. Why? It's just the nature of the age in Kali Yuga. Srila Prabhupada said, if you go to the vendor, the merchant, he will say, oh, for you, I'm not making any profit. For you, I make no profit. But he's making 200% profit. As Kali Yuga progresses, things will become even worse. And so therefore, it's not a good idea to chant the holy name in any other way than purely chanting the holy name. So there's the 10 offenses to help us become free from the offenses. So that we can know what the offenses are and try to become free from them. But basically, we need help in order to chant purely, to chant the holy name purely, and to perform the yajna that this verse is talking about. Performance of yajna, merging our life into the transcendence. It's not about something impersonal. It's very personal. Merging our life means our life becomes in complete harmony with the life of with the wishes and the desires of the pure devotee of the Lord. And that can happen if we get the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada mentions in Chaitanya Charitamrita that besides chanting the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. We also chant Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So by taking shelter of Lord Chaitanya and the Panchatattva, we can become free from our offenses to the holy name. Another way to become free from the offenses to the holy name and to be able to, to actually mold our life in such a way that all the acts that we perform become this yajna and become transcendental, is by continuously chanting, nonstop. The other way is by developing a service attitude, becoming an instrument in the service of Lord Chaitanya's mission, trying to do something to push forward the Lord Chaitanya's desire that everyone come to Krishna consciousness. That was his mood. And the more that we try to become engaged in helping other people come to Krishna consciousness, we develop that service attitude, then we become free from the offenses of chanting, and we become eligible to get the mercy of Krishna. You need the mercy of Krishna. We can work very hard towards becoming free from offenses, and we need to do that so that we can chant the holy name purely. But in order to actually chant the holy name purely, one needs to get the mercy of the Lord. So I see here that the deities are Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and they're very beautifully dressed and beautiful garlands, very nicely being taken care of. And certainly they will help us in our journey, our efforts to become Krishna conscious, to become free from offenses, so that we can make it back home, back to Godhead. We can actually realize in this life, this verse, all of our activities become a transcendental. They're not outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. And the closer we can get to that, then the closer we are to getting back home, back to Godhead. So, are there any questions?
So why does sense gratification cause us to turn away from Krishna?
Sense gratification causes us to turn away from Krishna because it puts us in a mentality of trying to be in competition with Krishna. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Bhoktaram, he's the enjoyer of everything. But when we engage in sense gratification, we are trying to develop we are developing the consciousness that I am the enjoyer. I am the enjoyer. But actually we're not. We're not the enjoyer. The enjoyer is Krishna. And and by engaging in sense gratification, we're like in competition with Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam describes that engaging in sense gratification, it dries up our Krishna consciousness. Just like when there's a pond, the pond may have so many reeds in the pond. So the reeds, they gradually dry up all of the water that's within the pond. They, suck it up. And sense gratification does the same thing to our Krishna consciousness, Bhagavatam says. So we may have a little Krishna consciousness. We have some affinity or attraction for Krishna. But by engaging in sense gratification, that becomes dried up. It's been described that as much Krishna consciousness we have, that much less attraction we'll have for the material energy. And as much attraction as we have for the material nature, that much less Krishna consciousness we'll have, like on a scale. In India, they put something over here, the weight, 1 kilo weight, and then they put apples over here and they weigh it like that. So if on this side, you have more desires for sense gratification, we all have desires for sense gratification, unlimited desires for sense gratification. But Krishna balances those things when we try to engage in his service, when we try to follow the instructions of the spiritual master, when we try to associate with devotees. Those desires seem insignificant. We become callous to those things. Just like if your foot rubs on the side of your shoe, you develop a callus, right? And you don't get a blister from that because your feet have become calloused. So in the same way, a devotee becomes callous to the desires for sense gratification. He becomes, he can ignore them. So this is a desired position to be, that you understand that sense gratification is going to take you in the wrong direction away from Krishna, and therefore you try to engage your senses in the service of Krishna. Eat only Krishna prasadam. Speak about Krishna, hear about Krishna. Use your eyes to see the deity nicely dressed in the temple. And in this way, the senses become absorbed in various activities in relationship with Krishna. And then this verse is completed. We merge into the transcendence. Hare Krishna, is that okay? Any other questions?
Hare Krishna. Is there one thing you can think of right now that, or one realization that you've had now that you wish that you had known sooner in your practice?
Well, sometimes I think what I would like to have known sooner was Srila Prabhupada. When Srila Prabhupada came to, or when he started ISKCON in 1966, so that time I was probably 15 years old, living in St. Louis. And if I had just known how to get to New York City and be with Srila Prabhupada, I would have saved myself a lot of trouble. So that's one thing that I would have liked to have known. But then it's according to Krishna's desire. When we come in contact with Krishna's devotee, when we can surrender to Krishna's devotee. I met one Srila Prabhupada disciple here, Alankar Prabhu. So Alankar Prabhu was telling me how he was in near 26 Second Avenue, and he saw the Bhagavatam in a bookshop, but he didn't pick it up. Then he saw Srila Prabhupada in another place. And finally, he was living in 26 Second Avenue, living in an apartment up above the devotees, right? So it took him a while to get together to the point of surrendering. So that's according to the desire of Krishna. But certainly, whatever you want to do for Krishna, do it now, because you never know what's ahead of you in old age, right? The body doesn't work so well, or you get some disease, right? So don't keep off things that you can do for Krishna today. Try to do those things now while you're healthy. Do something for Krishna. Do something for Lord Chaitanya's movement. Don't keep it for later. Do it as soon as you can. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Yes.
How important is taking responsibility in this movement for developing bhakti?
You see, responsibility can come in different forms. Some people think that responsibility means having a big position, but that might not necessarily be taking responsibility. That might be that you're still dovetailing your desires. There's all different kinds of responsibilities that one can take. But one can take a responsibility for something and do it very nicely on a regular basis. And please, Lord Chaitanya, please, Srila Prabhupada, their spiritual master, very much. It can be something as like taking care of Tulsi. One devotee may be very dedicated to taking care of Tulsi Maharani. Now, if you look at that in the scope of things, maybe it seems not so significant, right? But it can be a very significant thing, taking care of Tulsi. In an organization, what makes an organization work is that there are dedicated workers. They're not in the limelight. They're not, quote unquote, big devotees, but they're very serious about their service. They take it up with a seriousness. They take it up responsibly, and they do it regularly. Right? This makes any organization, whether it's Apple Computers or Google or anybody, they need dedicated workers that do something responsible on a regular basis. Vaisheshika Prabhu, in his book calls, our family business, he calls it the heavy lifting. Do some work for Krishna on a regular basis. And that is being responsible. And if Krishna gives you the opportunity to do something else that may be more complicated, then that's Krishna's mercy, and we should take up that responsibility also. That's what he wants us to do. Just like when I came to India, I wasn't there too long, and they asked me to be the Sankirtan leader in Juhu. And then after not so long, they said, okay, now we want you to be the BBT manager. Then they said, the same year, they said, we want you to be the temple president also. So I never imagined that I would have all these services. But we, whatever we're given, we should try to do it responsibly. And I can't say that I did it responsibly. I tried my best. Any other questions?
When we look at ISKCON, then we see there's a lot of opportunities. So sometimes the mind may say, well, I could be there doing my service to Krishna, or I could be over here. Is there any thing to gain from sticking to a project or like that, or maybe on the other side, is there something to gain from being explorative?
Well, Prabhupada never encouraged devotees to do things whimsically. He always encouraged the devotees to do things with authority. And we joined in a temple, and basically you would stay in that temple unless there were, your authority told you to go somewhere else. If you get in a habit of switching services, then it's difficult to become qualified in any one service. There's so much that one can develop in any particular service, like cooking. If you're cooking for the deities, you can develop that very nicely in terms of many different preps and quality of preps. You can try to improve. And like that, any service that we try to do, if we stick to it, we can become proficient in that. Just like even to this day, if you ask who are the good cooks, names like Apurva Prabhu and Gopati, they stand out because they did that service for, literally decades. They cooked for the deities, and they're famous as, prominent cooks in ISKCON. So it's not that we're trying to become famous, but if we become recognized by the devotees in any particular service, then certainly Krishna will also notice, and that will be the success of our life. Yeah. Take up some responsibility and try and do it nicely, big or small, whatever comes your way. Life is, in ISKCON, there's opportunities, and we should seize those opportunities to serve Krishna. It doesn't depend so much where you are. You may be disturbed in one place. Doesn't mean if you go to another place, you won't be disturbed. You know the saying, when the lines on your forehead, they go with you wherever you are, right? In the same way, we can't, in the old days, some devotee would get trouble and take shelter of the Greyhound bus station, go to another place instead of trying to take shelter of Krishna. If I have some difficulty with someone or something, then look at my sadhana and see how it is. Am I trying to improve my chanting? Am I trying to read Srila Prabhupada's books regularly? My experience is that if you focus on those things, whatever difficulty is there very quickly seems very insignificant to the point where it's not even a problem at all. That's my experience. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. When the spiritual master leaves this world physically, at least, how can we maintain a relationship and also deepen that relationship?
Well, when the spiritual master leaves the world, it becomes quite chaotic for the disciples because they don't have that proper guidance. So it can be tragic, can be tragic. So when the spiritual master leaves, the instructions that he's given should be, that's your shelter to hold on to those things, to get through the crisis period, right? And after some time, the sincere followers and who want to push on the mission of the spiritual master, they'll make it through. They'll make it through. But it clearly explains in the Bhagavatam that when he leaves, it's chaos. And we saw that in ISKCON. There was a lot of momentum, but at the same time, there was a lot of confusion as to what should be done and how it should be done. Yeah, and another thing, in those days, everybody that joined was like 21, 22, 23. The only mature in age and an experienced person was Srila Prabhupada, just one. Maybe a few devotees were a little older, but mostly they were just kids, right? So if you have a whole bunch of kids hanging out together, obviously they get in trouble, right? But nowadays you have a lot more mature devotees and who can give good advice and can help guide devotees in their upbringing and Krishna consciousness. So you have a better advantage these days. I think so. What do you think? Time will tell. Okay. Any other reflections or comments about this particular verse?
Many times we call book distribution Sankirtan Yagya. So actually that was always I didn't know why we were calling it Sankirtan Yagya. And then we, in terms of,
Sankirtan Yagya is the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. It's the yagya of this age. Yagyai sankirtana prayi yajanti hi sumedasa. Those people who have sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord in this age by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So how can you call book distribution? Because book distribution is, Prabhupada says, is literary kirtan. Literary kirtan. And by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, which are Shabda Brahman, you're performing Sankirtan. You're spreading the name, right, of philosophy, Krishna's message. message of the Bhagavatam about Krishna and about Krishna's devotees. So it also becomes Sankirtan Yagya. That's why the devotees, they say we're going out on Sankirtan when they distribute books. And there's also Harinam Sankirtan, when devotees go out on the street and chant the holy name. You do that here in Kansas City? Where do you go?
We go to the Luz Park and to the plaza.
Okay. Nice. A lot of people there in the park and yeah.
Sometimes
What time do you go out?
we go out at 4:30 p.m.
Okay. That's nice.
Jagannath is leading the party recently. Jagannath Prabhu.
Jai Jagannath.
Jai.
We just had Jagannath Rath Yatra in Puri. A lot of people were there doing the chanting too. Like about 1 million people probably. How many here have been to the Jagannath Rath Yatra in Puri? Nobody? Oh. It's a lot of people there. And that's why they called the British, they had a name for the Jagannath Rath Yatra. They called it the Juggernaut. And when something is like an unstoppable force, Juggernaut, which came from actually Jagannath. So, yeah. I see here they have a picture of Jagannath. And is that like for a future deity might come sometime, or is that the idea? Radha Krishna. When I joined the temple, there was only the Panchatattva photograph in St. Louis. And that was what the devotees worship for many years there. Then finally they got Gornitai. In 1974, July. So next year will be 50 years of the installation of Nitai Gaur Nataraj in St. Louis in the month of July, 50 years. I happened to be there. That was Satsvarup Maharaj came and did the installation. And they're planning on doing a little commemorative 50th anniversary celebration down in St. Louis in July, next July. So if you want, you can all come and participate. Jai Nitai Gaur Nataraj. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Is this the original Gita here? Macmillan?